Okay, guys. So, who knew that I'd end up having to do all this myself? I guess it's kind of fun. It's a little interesting, but so I have myself marked here. Okay, I've got various colors. It's really just for contrast, and where I'm marked is actually there are actually various things that I'm marking here. Okay, on my body. So I just want to point out so that you guys have it very clear. This is where the clavicles begin over the sternal notch. Okay, so this is where the sternum begins, right here. And the blue points are starting right here. Okay, and I've just highlighted where the shape of my clavicles. Okay, because as you can see on the skeleton, it's quite distorted. Okay, now some people, they really do have their clavicles that low, but I don't. Okay, so now you can see this difference here. I've also put tape where the heads of my my ulna and my radius are. Okay, here you can see also. See if I can show you. Right here, this head of the humerus, okay, is right here. All right. I know that a bunch of you would mark this on your highlighted anatomy packet, but you wouldn't get the actual elbow point. There are 2 points here, okay? Right here, you see this large amount of shadow, okay? So that is a reference point, and you can feel it right here. It's sharp and pointy, and it either creates a highlight, okay? It either creates a highlight or a deepest area of the body. That's how you are able to identify many of these skeletal reference points, okay, where it's just skin over bone. Let's see. I've got obviously my pelvic points here, okay. This is roughly where it is, and then you can say I put the line connecting the two, so you can think about the pelvic box, and then a little notch right here to just act as a center line, okay? So you can see how the tipping of the hips is very obvious. Same thing with the back, okay? The back pelvic points, which are narrower. You see that when you're making your models, that they're going to be the marks taped in the back of their pelvis. But the thing that you won't see so much is that there's actually a triangle here of the sacrum, okay? So you're gonna get 2 dimples back here where the pelvic points are, and then a line of shadow here, okay, in the sacrum. Now, just to be clear, these sculptures, you can make them with the models wearing their bathing suits, because those are your reference photos, all right? You don't have to make them nude. If you want to try to make them nude, that's fine too. Just ask me for pointers, and we also will have images of the anatomical model as well, so you can actually make your model nude if you like. So, oh, I haven't marked the great trochanter. So, right here is the great trochanter. I'll mark that right now. So this great trochanter is pretty important because you're going to get a dimple here, all right? So on a person who's announced female at birth, they're going to have a fat pad in this area of the hips, right? And covering also the iliac crest, okay? This is the iliac crest right here. All right, so you're gonna have a fat pad covering this area, but no matter what, you're still going to get the head of great trochanter. Okay, so let's put it here. Oh man, it's kind of submerged. Here, you can see back here, great trochanter is right here. Okay, and you can feel it on yourself. It's like this hard little bump. Okay, it hurts, all right, because it's just, once again, it's just skin over the bone. So I'm just marking these areas so that when I do these movements and I show you the difference between the various models, you'll be able to see the difference in the angles and such, okay? Because I want you to understand the difference between various gestures and why body type will affect those various gestures, okay? So it's going to give your figures in the future a lot more variety, because you know there's a difference between the way people hold their bodies. Okay, so Charles, right? He's got like these big, oh wait, hang on, I forgot to, okay, so let me finish this. We've got the kneecap, all right? I've got these marked out. And then this is maybe not as obvious for you, but that's where you get just bone. And here you can see on the anatomical sculpture that it really is, it's like just bone with skin covering it. And you can feel that ridge right along this area, connecting down to the bump of the ankle. Okay, so hopefully that should be very clear for you guys. So when you're sculpting, there's going to be an area of shadow here. And then on either side, you're going to see muscle mass. Okay, so that's something that, so you can see how when I rotate, you know, rotate at the hip socket, how this line changes, right? What else is there? Okay, so another thing is I also taped where how my toes are oriented. Okay, so the toes in general, they're gonna, well, it depends. Some people have their big toes lined up like this, or if they wore smaller shoes when they were kids, they're gonna be out like that. They're gonna point towards, kind of like a wedge or a triangular shape. Okay, some people have them straight across. It's all different. Okay, it depends how long the second toe is in relation to the big toe. So if so I won't go too far with that, but you can see the difference here. Here you can see the skeleton toe that just goes straight across. All right, I have a second toe that's actually longer, and that creates more of a triangular point. And then here is just a diagonal, okay? So what else do we have here? I've also marked the side angle, okay? The one that connects from, if you were to connect from the back pelvic point to the front, this is the angle that you're gonna get. So this gives you the sensation, it gives you the visual of how the pelvis is tipped, okay? So some people have duck butt, and some people have little old person way of walking, okay? Pelvis, okay? So, all right, now that we've got that, I want to show you some of the marks that I've made. So those are bones, right? Now I want to address the marks on me that they're making you aware of bone arrangement, okay? So here, we've got the radius, okay? I'm marking this because this is an area where a lot of people can get confused, okay? So I just want to remind you of this, that when you're looking at your model and they have their arms rotated, right, at the radius, or, you know, maybe the hands up here, right? You're thinking about how this rotates. And if you look at and you feel your wrist, okay, you'll see that it's kind of like a generic rectangle. Okay, it's like a flattened rectangle. You can just feel it, okay? And so if you think about this flat plane and how it rotates, okay, in relation to where the elbow is, right? Remember that this elbow is where the humerus is, okay, right here. You can think about, so this is where my tape is. All right, so here and here, that's where my tape is. So now, let me open this arm out, okay? I'm gonna do this. So now, if I rotate this over, okay? So the radius, if you remember right here, This is where the rotation occurs, right? Rotates here. You can see right here, it's kind of like a little bowl shape, so they can rotate around this kind of sphere type end of this humerus, right? So you're going to see this rotation here. Remember how the bones cross over? Okay, you see that? So this crossing over is what's creating the shapes. All right, and you see how this crossing over changes the thickness, okay, the thickness of this forearm. All right, so when you make these forearms, however way they're rotated, you're going to be looking for where these are, where are these bones, and you just know that that when you rotate it, it's as if this flat bar, right, of the forearm is getting rotated and twisting, and thus making this area thicker. Okay, so I'll do this again. See that? So the way to really help you understand is you really do have to feel this area right here, okay? And then rotate and feel how much thicker it gets, and feel how the mass of the muscles is arranged more here, okay? And on this part of the arm. All right? So, all right, we've got that. So you get rotation, okay? Now, here I put a little bit of the deltoid, okay? That's something that I mentioned to you before, that you should feel your clavicles. And you notice how there's an angle change right around here, okay? This is, all right, so right around that area, you can feel it when you move your arm around, okay? Especially when you lift it up, okay, like this. You'll feel the fibers of the deltoid inserting into the clavicle. And you know what? I actually made a mistake. I can feel this is in the wrong spot. So I'm going to move it right now. It's actually here. Okay? So when the deltoid is inserting here at this little swoopy part of the clavicle, okay, and then right here, you're going to see that, you can see from here, but from the front, the deltoid is going to start closer to the edge of the shoulder, and then in the back, you're going to see that the deltoid starts much more closer to the center of the body. I mean, at least compared to the front. So I'm going to get this. I don't know if the sculpture helps you. Let's see. Let me just lift this. So. Yeah, this is awkward, but I don't care. It's gonna work anyway. Okay, so here you can see, so the deltoid, we're doing a dip, we're doing a dance. Deltoid starts here, okay? And then you see how it starts over there, okay? So it's like a cap, but it's smaller and closer to the edge in the front, and then wider back here, okay? Yeah, that's what happens if you drop your model. Okay. Okay. So so this scapular positioning, right? You guys had to highlight the fact that there's this area right here that you can see more obviously, right? There is muscle here, but you can see this ridge of the scapula, right? Ridge of the scapula. Okay. Oh yeah, and then the deltoid, once again, starts here. Starts here, goes this way, and then starts here and then swoops over, okay? And you can feel the root of the deltoid right here, okay? So, so that's what I have marked here. And then I also have a little point here for this point right here. The point at which the scapula, this swooping arm of the scapula and the end of the clavicle meet, okay? So here's the other marks that I have. I've got the sartorius muscle. So I told you that much of the body, especially, well, the structure of the skeleton in general is going to be triangular in shape, right? And then also I showed you how the zigzagging and almost like triangulation of masses in the body is also occurring, right, when it comes to gesture. Now, another thing you should know about too is spirals. Okay, so one very important spiral muscle is the sartorius. So here's our pelvic point. The sartorius is this really long and skinny muscle. Just be sure you can see. So it's the upper part of the body here. So we've got the pelvic point here, or actually here, this might be a little easier. We've got the pelvic point here. The sartorius starts here at the pelvic point. I know it's a little off right there, but it starts here, and then it wraps around, okay, into the inner part of the leg, just back behind the knee, and then inserting right here. Okay, so that's what I have here on my taped on my leg. All right, so starting here, circling here, and then ending right there. Okay, so that way, so you see how I can rotate with this ball and socket joint right here, right? So I was explaining to you before, but I felt like I didn't, you know, for some of you may not have crystallized. I want to be sure you guys really get this. So when it comes to the joint homework that we did, that was so that you understood how each type of joint moves, and then that way you can figure out how to make your own body positions, okay? So because of this rotation at the hip joint, okay, all right, the femur having a ball and socket joint articulating with the pelvis, okay, you see the ball right here, and then this is kind of like a bowl, all right, empty socket bowl. You can do this, all right? So when we have our Charles sculpture, he's a little bit of a rotation here, just a touch, okay? Just a touch here. Now, let's think about Lex, okay? So, oh wait, okay, excuse me. So there's a little bit of lean here for Charles, okay? A rotation out here. His leg is rotating out because of this right here, okay? His foot is rotated out. His knee is slightly pointed a little bit more forward, okay? And then his rib cage is actually kind of all leaning more like this, just a touch, okay? So you see the neutral, right? Duh, he doesn't have his hand on his hips, okay? And then he's like this. So when you make your sculpture, you've already done the Contrapposto homework, right? Actually take your pose and start to think about what's actually happening, okay? So the rib cage can be rotated, and then the shoulders, okay, you can see from here, can be either pulled back or pushed forward. Okay, so Charles happens to have these rather, this really weighty back muscles, okay? And then he also has very strong pectoral muscles as well, okay? So pectoral, fat pad, female fat pad, pectoral muscles right here. So this is very weighty on him. And then you see all these muscles here, very well developed, quite heavy on his back. Okay, now since he does quite a lot of work at the gym, you're going to find that the tendency for people who do that, right, is to have this kind of more forward kind of tilt. All right, just like the scapula, right? So I didn't mark the scapulas because even if I were to tape it, if I moved it, the scapulas will slide underneath the skin, okay? So when you're doing Charles, sure. Okay. So when you're doing Charles, you're going to think about where his scapula are. Okay, they could be sliding down. So when they do this, it's more like a wedge shape, right? The space in between the scapula. All right, there's a shape there. So you can look for that, whether it's more like a V, or if it's more like an A, or if it's more like an H, right? So with Charles, it's a touch like this. It's a touch A-like, all right? Because his scapula, all right, are sliding a little bit more forward. All right, his shoulders are a little bit more forward, okay? Like that. Okay, so that's what you need to know for Charles's body position. Now, when it comes to, let's do Levi next. So Levi, let's see. All right. So when it comes to Levi, his feet, his right foot, okay, this is just a touch more forward from his right ankle, excuse me, is a touch more forward than his left ankle, okay? And his position actually is not putting a lot of weight on this knee. So I want to show you what I mean. His knee is slightly bent, the standing leg one. So be very sure that you're aware that he's not locking back like this. He's actually loosening his knee a little bit. So those of you who are like suffering from the Contrapposto, you know, doing it for the first time, you'll notice that instead of wanting to do this, you'll be like, let go of that knee, right? So, so that's what he's doing. He's trying to do the pose so that it's doable for him. So he's got a little bit of, you see that? So instead of swinging the knee back, right, he's letting it ease a little bit forward. So it's kind of more like a spring-like, okay? So kind of more like this. Now, Levi is more slim, okay? So he doesn't have as much mass in the front or the back, and he's a little bit more, he's keeping his rib cage. So he's not sticking his rib cage out, but he's letting it just be a little bit more neutral, okay? And he's also pushing it back a little bit, pushing his rib cage back a little bit. And then his weight of his stand leg, all right. So he's not like this, where it's like an almost, it's like a partial plie, okay? He's like this. Okay, so his pelvis is not pushed out so much. It's actually a little bit more forward. Excuse me. It's a little more forward and neutral. Okay, with the rib cage pulled back. And then he's tucking his neck in to look down. Okay, so if he does this, it's gonna kill his neck, right? So he's gonna draw back like that. So definitely feel this, okay? Try to go all the way back here and then be like, okay, he doesn't really do that. He does a little bit of moving forward, okay, like this. And then he's holding back like that. Okay? And then when it comes to the arm, right, remember that there's a rotation here. Okay, so the arms are like this, bending, okay, bending, and then rotating. So like this, and then rotating. Okay, so be sure you feel that. You can actually feel that on yourself. You can put your hand right here, you know, feel how this goes like this, and then like that. Okay, and doing this rotation, the amount that he's done where the fingers are rotating forward to the front of the body helps to lock these bones in place. If he was to do this, it would slide down. So he's doing this to be able, so because it's going to push up against the hip. Okay. All right. So that's Levi. Yeah, and his elbow is back. It's back a bit more. Okay. All right. All right. So now let's get to Mia. So Mia has the same hand up here, but her legs are switched. Okay. And her feet, her left foot is placed right around the area of the arch of her right foot. Okay. Let's get back here. So the thing with Mia, and I had started to explain, is that she actually takes one of the strongest contrappostos of all the models, all right? And it's largely due to the difference between the width of the hips between those announced female at birth and those announced male at birth. So those announced female at birth have wider hips compared to the other people, the other folks, okay? So the pelvic points of, let's say, Charles and Levi in comparison would be more narrow, like right here, whereas Mia's are out here, okay? So if you think about it as like a triangle, okay, you see even with my legs, so I have wider hips, okay? You see how out from this point, it goes down into a central point for where the feet are, right? So for those announced male at birth with the narrower hips, you're gonna get something that looks much more, a little bit more rectangular looking as opposed to triangle-like, all right, in my case and in Mia's. So with Mia, she's got these wider hips, okay? And because of that, she can create a wider triangle, okay? So look here. Okay, you see how because these points are farther out apart, she can push this hip way out and create this really dramatic triangular shape, okay? All right, so when you have the weight of the body, you know, on all the exterior borders of the hips, and thus the weight of the body getting pushed all the way out to the side like this, you can have a rib cage. So you get all the way out here, you get a rib cage that wants to do this. Okay, you see this? You want a rib cage that's going to angle just as it's not going to be like this, right? Because that's ridiculous. But what's going to happen is that you're going to have this hip movement, and then the rib cage is going to want to slide to the side, and then the sternal notch, pit of the neck, whatever you want to call it, right? The center of the clavicles will be centered right over that standing leg, okay? So the more weight she puts on this hip and also that foot there, okay, now you know how that feels because you've actually done it, right? So the more she puts weight here, the more that maybe you'll get more tipping here, or or more of this, where the rib cage slides to the side. Okay, so you see how it's all maintaining itself over that standing foot. Okay, so we'll go neutral again. All right, so we'll go out here, and then you see how this rib cage goes out and then angles a touch that way. Okay, so her hand is placed similarly to Lex's. You just need to remember that you're going to search for these points that are marked for their wrist bones, okay, so that you can think about where the rotation is occurring, so that you make sure that this little rectangular part of the wrist is rotated in the right spot. Okay, so like this. All right. And then the other thing about Mia is that her rib cage, okay, she's got, so when it comes to female fat pads, right, there are female fat pads here around the knee area. Oops. Here around the knee area, you're going to get it around the inner part of the thigh, outer part of the thigh, around the flank. You're going to get it in the bust area. Hello, there it is right there. Where else? You're going to get more around the belly area, around the glutes. The reason is that those announced female at birth, that fat is meant to help maintain the body during times of, like, let's say when you can't eat, right? So that if you were to have a child, your body will have all these fat reserves to be able to feed the body, to feed the growth of a child. All right, so it's a survival thing. That's why it's very important that we do have fat. It means you have extra reserves when you're very thin, and you get pregnant, right? Your body may have trouble being able to feed that body of that new baby, that fetus. Okay, so that's why we have these various fat pads. So Mia is a full-figured model, and the thing with full-figured models, because of these fat pads, right? Oops. Especially like the bust. So this is something that with the weight of the bust itself can actually be so heavy sometimes that if you do this, you are going to kill your lower back and your upper shoulder area. Okay, so in order to compensate for the heavier bust, Mia is pulling back. Okay, so she's pulling this back. Now, as a result of that, okay, to ease up on the amount of contractions happening at these back muscles here. So unfortunately, you can't see it as much, but there's a lot of back muscles right here. And if you feel this area on either side of your spine, you're gonna feel it's like these really thick ropes of muscle right here. And this is what is holding up your freaking torso. I mean, it's incredible, okay? I mean, a lot of it will be holding there. There are a whole bunch of muscles all lined up all along the spine right here. So they're all like, it's kind of like, if you look at it in an anatomy book, it looks like twisted rope, okay? Connecting from one point to the other. And it's all underneath this layer right here. So, so to ease up, so if she's pulling her rib cage back, right? And these muscles are contracting, to ease up the amount that they're contracting, right? Okay, to shorten the amount of space. So if she's doing this, she's really pulling back, okay? But if she pulls her pelvis back, so remember this neutral pelvis, right? Okay, when it goes back like this, kind of a little bit more like duck butt, okay? And then she pulls her rib cage back, it actually is less effort to hold that up. Okay. All right, see? So her weight, she really puts all of her weight, oops, Oh my God, I just reversed this. I'm so sorry, guys. Right. It's not perfect, but hey. So, so here you can see she's back like this. All right. So instead of doing neutral like this and then back like that, which could be very uncomfortable, she's all right. So she's back like this. All right. And then instead of doing this, right, she's letting this pelvis pull back. All right, so the angle of it is from this to that. Okay. So that is what you're seeing. And you're seeing a very strong push back here. Okay. You just gotta check this. Yeah. Okay. So the pelvis moves back behind the standing foot. Okay. Back behind the standing foot, and then the rib cage pulls back. All right. And then her neck. Okay. She keeps it pretty well tucked in. All right. And you remember that the sense of balance is very definite. Okay. You're going to feel if you're doing this, you're going to create strain back here. All right. So you're going to feel that there's a certain amount of equilibrium that needs to be maintained. Okay. So that's Mia. Now let's go to Lex. So Lex, right, has the more gestural, or the more relaxed hips. He's got a lot of weight transfer. Okay, so instead of like Levi, who's just kind of more like this, and he's relaxing his knees. Okay, he's not making this super tight, this knee area right here. So when you pull it back, you'll find that that a lot of strain can occur here in these knee muscles, right? So Lex, and his arm is here, is actually doing quite a lot of tipping. So you know, you're going to see various personality types, and you're really going to see it in the way people hold themselves. So Lex was a philosophy major, and so his mind is quite flexible, and he really thinks in many different directions. So I'm not saying Levi isn't either. He's quite a philosopher too, but they just have, you know, Levi's maybe a little bit more reserved in his personality, and Lex is maybe a little bit more extroverted. Okay, so so Lex, you're going to see a little bit more of this. Okay. So his pose is actually quite a bit more like Mia's from the front. Okay. And you know, his hand, right? You see this rotation, it's kind of at a midpoint. Okay. So it's not a full straightening, but it's also not a full pulling back. It's kind of in the middle. All right. So what you're going to find is that the flat part of this elbow, right? You see how the profile is flatter here, is and then it's going to be kind of like this, like flat like this, pointing that way. And then because it's a half rotation, you're going to see from the outermost point here that it's at a little bit of a diagonal, that you're going to get this wrist. Okay. All right. So here, okay, so here he's got this, and then he's kind of going counterbalancing against this angle right here. Okay, so this is center point. Okay. Now the thing though is that because he's got an announced male at birth body, right? He doesn't have the same types of fat pads that Mia has, right? Or that I have. So so you're going to see that he doesn't have a bust that he has to carry around all the time, and so his rib cage is a little bit more neutral. Okay, it's a little more neutral. It's not like this. It's a little bit more like that. Okay. So I hope that this helps you understand a little bit about the gesture of the various models and gives you a way to compare. Okay. All right.